friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks workshop. So just how do you put a positive spin on a negative comment? I don't know for sure. I think the first thing you have to do is you have to recognize it as a negative comment. Here's one, take a look. I'll give you a few seconds, and if you need to, you can pause your screen. Yeah, that looked like a negative comment to me. Here's another one. Yep, I recognize it. Those are negative comments. Let's take the first one first. He says hide glue is the only glue you should ever use on an instrument. That it's just pure laziness. Well, you've all seen my roughly 250 videos out there, and you can tell right off I'm lazy. It's just obvious. You know, I'm just born that way. I can't help it. Nothing I can do about that. Even when I was just a little kid, my dad called me lazy once. I remember that. Still hurts. Doggone. But let's just talk about that. Hide glue's the best glue in the whole world. It's the only glue you should ever use on an instrument, period. Let's analyze that thought for a minute. Pick a time period in history. I don't care which time period you pick. You can go all the way back to the cavemen if you want to. I'm going to pick somewhere about the Dark Ages, you know, when it was pretty bleak. You know, the plagues were going around and people were dying left and right. They were still using hide glue at that time, by the way, just so you know. Well, you know, back then, they didn't really have many good medical procedures. Pretty much all they did was bleed you. You know, if you got a bellyache, they would bleed you and say, well, this would get rid of all the bad stuff in there and, you know, you'll feel better, you know. And if you had the plague, they'd bleed you, you know. And so do you think maybe in 500 years or 400 years or whatever it is, it doesn't matter the time period, do you think medical procedures have improved or medical technology has improved? What about transportation? Do you think that's improved in 500 years? What about washing your clothes? Back then, you know, the poor women worked like slaves, or they were slaves, one of the two, and they had to take your clothes down to the creek and beat them on a rock. Do you think that's improved, that technology? So how is it that glue in 500 years hasn't improved at all? I don't get it. I don't see how it's possible. But obviously it is. You know, obviously hide glue is better than any modern glue, obviously. I'm just stupid and lazy. I'm also very lazy. That next comment. This guy does a bunch of harm. He breaks stuff. He makes it look worse way before he makes it look better. I've yet to see a video where he didn't make it look worse first. I know, you know, I'm as big on old vintage instruments as anybody is. Especially the sentimental part, where it's been handed down from generation to generation. I've got my grandpa's old fiddle, and I love it. But you know what? The fiddle's just a thing. What I really love is that my grandpa played it, and I remember my grandpa. That's what I remember. Now, I break stuff and I make it look worse before it looks better. And I do it off camera, especially. Well, and he refers to that one, the tenor harmony. Well, I told you I broke it. I didn't hide it. I didn't have to tell you that. If I hadn't have told you that, you'd have never known it. Nobody would have known it. Even the customer wouldn't have known it, because you couldn't tell it after I put it back. And while we're talking about that harmony tenor guitar, let's just pause a second here and read an email from that particular customer. I think you can see he was quite pleased. The fact that it actually did break accidentally while I was trying to fix it didn't seem to bother him too much. But let's just analyze that thought for a minute. That he makes it look worse and, he tears them up and everything before he makes them look better. Well, first of all, there's this romantic thought out there that almost everybody has, including me, that these things have their own spirit. That they're somehow above a human. They feel, they think. Well, they don't, guys. They're made out of wood, okay? They're made out of wood, they're made out of metal strings and glue, and they don't do nothing except sit there until a person puts life into them. And varying people have varying degrees of putting life into them, and some of them are very, very, very gifted, and they do it wonderfully. Much better than me. But there is no magic there. I mean, you can romanticize it all you want. And I do the same thing myself. But when you get right down to it, they don't feel, they don't think, they don't do nothing. They just sit there. It's the person that puts the magic in the instrument. That's the bottom line. And so, what about making them worse before they get better? Well, there's no magic fairies that come floating down out of the sky in my workshop and fix these things while I just sit there in amazement and they get fixed. That's not how it works. And if you know anything about fixing anything, almost every time you got to make it look worse before you make it better. And I don't care what you're talking about. It'd be a tractor. You got to tear it apart before you can fix it. And it looks like heck when it's torn apart. What about your heart surgeon? People think, oh, this guy's gifted, man. He's the best in the world. And he might be. And that's fine if he is. But there's no magic there. It's the person that brings the magic to the table, if you will, and the person that does the work. Just think about open heart surgery for a minute. You go in and you're dying. You're going to die if you don't get this. And you come out and you're wonderful. Well, you think it's just peaches and cream. But the reality is totally different. They take a big knife and they rip you right open. And maybe they rip you open this far or farther. And then they take this big metal thing and they put it on here and they spread it wide open. There's nothing romantic about it. It's blood and guts, man. And it really is nasty. And then they fix you and make you better and they put you back together and in a little while you're good as gold. But there's nothing romantic about it. And it's the same way with instruments. You can romanticize it all you want. Both of these guys seriously need, and this is a family channel, so I'm saying it in the nicest way I possibly can. So your kids can still watch this, even I think. You can be the judge on this. Both of these guys need to pull their heads out of their dark places that they're keeping them. I think it's somewhere in their posterior area. Not only will they see better, but they'll get a breath of fresh air. Thanks for watching.